Good evening, buddy. Kumar Varun. This is the third episode of Two Past Two Curious, or as it is known as Three Past Three Curious now.
Hi, buddy Visagalendra. Nicely starting with a mathematical joke. Love it.
Thanks.
Love it.
Thanks. Buddy, what is today's episode about?
Today's episode, like the last episode, we talked about Earth before humans.
Yeah,
This episode, we are going to start with early humans.
yeah.
Okay, early humans. So, buddy, are
So
you
we're
ready for to discuss early humans?
yeah, like us who are early here. Not like that. Like the very first human. I'm just checking if I'm recording. Yes, I'm recording. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Buddy, do you have any opening remarks?
um, a little bit. Thank you all for watching this podcast. You have given a lot of suggestions. We're listening to them and we're trying to see how to incorporate them the best. So don't worry.
Yeah,
It's not like we're not listening. We're just talking. We'll
yeah,
find a way of incorporating your feedback. Once the lockdown opens up, it'll be easier. अभी तो इसी फॉर्मेट में कर रहे हैं. Hopefully sound was okay last time. This time it might be slightly better. Okay, so that's all the uh, generic stuff.
yeah. I wanted to say a couple of generic stuff, and
Yeah,
because we've been reading all the comments, etc. I just want to
yeah,
reiterate a couple of points. One is, I don't know, I think we'll not reiterate it in the next few episodes. I mean, going
yeah,
forward, but I just want to repeat that we are not claiming to be experts. We are just
yeah,
amateurs,
yeah,
and so, and our whole idea is to generate curiosity around certain topics that we both are very curious about, and so that you guys discuss this amongst yourself with us, and that'll be the whole. We'll achieve what we started to achieve. We haven't, both of us haven't studied history. We are not scientists. We are not anthropologists. So obviously, what we are saying is from the limited knowledge that we have. It's not. We are not the final word. We
yeah.
have just read a few things in our life. So please go out, read more things, and then discuss it. Give nice suggestions. No need to counter whatever we have said. Maybe we are
Yeah.
wrong. Just go and read.
After you watch Two Past Two Curious, you pass Two Curious. Yeah. Okay. They call me a summary boy because I summarize. Okay. So today's topic is early humans.
Yeah.
Um, and will we have there's no like definitive boundaries for it, so we'll stop before agriculture.
Yeah.
That's our this thing. So yes, we're going to talk about that era. I did a lot of research to find nothing of use. So today my job is to agree with you. So take it ahead, boy.
But I love your background, as always, very thematic.
Thanks.
I wanted to start by with one of my favorite topics, which, as you know, is food and cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and while I was reading about early humans, I realized how big a part cooking has played in the evolution of human beings. You know,
Yeah.
the entire episode of humans discovering fire has made such a big impact. In fact, the first evidence of fire is even before Homo sapiens came.
Yeah.
Like before the modern human, like you and I are. First evidence was before that. In fact, before sapiens, there was something called Homo erectus, right? Homo erectus basically means an erect man, an upright man, a man who walks upright. Okay,
Yeah.
and they were the first to walk upright. They had larger brains than their predecessors, and they had propensity for tools. So that's what they were, the three things that Homo erectus had. Now, when I started reading about cooked food, I realized once we discovered fire, and there are many theories of how we did that, so I'm not going into that. There's some jokes. I mean, there are some theories which say that humans first saw lightning, and then a tree was lit, and they went and they lit something. And there are many, many,
Yeah.
many different ways, different theories. But the I just want to focus on how discovery of fire led to cooking of food. You know, and then see how things progress. You discover fire, you start cooking food, and because you're cooking food, they were safer to eat because the bacteria inside were killed. Okay, they were easier to digest. So now your food is safe to eat, and it's easier to digest, which basically meant which basically resulted into larger brains and bodies.
Yeah.
because cooked food is easier to digest.
Yeah.
And so it reduced the amount of energy which was earlier required to process food. And
Yeah.
that energy could then be used for developing brain mass and using the brain more often. So you see how discovery of fire leads to humans to cook food, which leads to more power to the brain, and which leads to such major change in human history.
Yeah.
And that for me was one of the first very very interesting discovery when I started working on this
I'll
episode.
just I'll just add 2 points to that.
Yeah,
So the second thing first, how the brain thing grew. What I read was that brain is an organ that consumes a disproportionate amount of energy.
yeah,
Okay, just thinking and all this takes up a lot of energy. Now, cooking is actually the first step of digestion. So if you didn't cook that food with that fire, your body would have to consume as much energy as that fire to bring it to that cooked form, right? Because cooking is nothing but breaking down the complex proteins or complex carbohydrates or whatever into simpler digestive elements. So when people started cooking, they had to spend a lot less energy on digesting that this thing because of this reason, because it was already small things that could be very easily digested, right?
yeah,
And the
yeah,
second thing is they found um, evidence in Kenya somewhere in 1980s. They were digging and they found that uh, at some places the earth has a patch of like baked orangish blackish kind of thing. And they're like, what is this? What has happened here? And cannot be wildfire because wildfire would burn every place. But they found like patches of this. That's how they know that people used to burn something like campfire, and then they
yeah,
dated it, and it was long ago. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Even evidence of pits, in the
yeah,
sense that early humans had pits where they used to fire things and put things to cook.
yeah,
And yeah, it's beautiful how cooking has essentially shaped modern humans. It's
yeah,
that one invention of or discovery of fire rather.
yeah,
uh, and this is how, and there are just numerous examples of how these small chapters in human history is still relevant in how and who we are right now. For example, we can't eat raw meat anymore. We
yeah,
can't eat because since we started cooking and the early humans started eating cooked food, we slowly lost those enzymes which were used to digest raw food. And so
yeah,
modern human, we don't have that enzyme anymore. So unlike other mammals or other animals, we can't eat raw meat. Wow. So cooking actually shaped modern humans. That is. Uh, and the other
also
other byproduct of cooking is I mean, this was like on an individual level. The other byproduct was how cooking changed socialization pattern. So uh, earlier, the earliest humans were eating on the run. Like they used to like move from one place to another because they hunted and then they whatever. We'll come to that part of human scavenging. Earlier, hominids used to do all that, and then once they started cooking, they started this concept of shared space and eating meals together. So then you have some meat, and then a lot of people sit together around a fire and they cook it, and you start eating, and then that is in long run shaped our social needs and behavior. So not just on individual level inside us, it also shaped that cooking suddenly became, or like eating suddenly became a social thing. Earlier it was very
yeah.
like individual thing where you used to eat here, then go to the next forest, get more animal or meat, and then move on. So yeah, that was another another very interesting thing that I read. The third thing, I just want to end the cooking part by saying about not just cooking. Now I'm going back to fire now. So discovery of fire not just led to cooking, it also altered and fundamentally altered our daily routine. So for example, once the early humans had fire, their activities were no more restricted to daytime hour, and then which meant that their waking day became longer. Okay, so modern humans till date have an average of 16 hours where we are awake. which is almost double than uh, any mammal. Most mammals are usually awake to like 8 9 hours, and all this is because we discovered fire at some point in human history, and then we realized that no need to sleep. We have more light and we can do like more things. And
Yeah,
yeah, so fire changed our routine forever.
yeah. And our teeth also became smaller after cooking was invented
Yeah,
because we didn't
yeah,
need to chew raw meat and all that. So
yeah,
we had
yeah,
small teeth, and
yeah,
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 I didn't know the social aspect of fire.
yeah, yeah. But since you talked about uh, teeth, yeah, I mean earlier because we used to have larger premolars because we used to chew harder food. We used to like branches and like raw meat, bones, whatever. So we needed to we used to do all that. And then
Yeah,
once the we started eating cooked food or like boiled food, our jaw volume over the time grew smaller. Not for
yeah,
me, buddy. It's nicely, but like smaller jaw volume and teeth size eventually became smaller because over the years we had cooked food, and even the diet became very diverse. Like
yeah,
initially, we used to only eat either some fruit or like leaves or like it was very omnivorous diet that we had earlier, and some meat. But then it became diverse because you knew that now you can boil food.
yeah.
Cool,
But
but
you were talking about mammals, no? How
yeah,
mammals, like most mammals, are only awake 8 9 hours a day. I think I am one of those mammals. That's
yeah,
all.
buddy.
That's my contribution to your topic. I have I have nothing else. Okay, so
Yeah,
one thing. So apart from the fire thing, uh, a lot happened in this time frame. I think one of the misconceptions I always had till very recently was that Neanderthals was one stage of evolution. Like पहले monkey रहते थे, फिर Neanderthal हो गए, फिर पूरा proper हो गया. Okay, I thought Neanderthal is the guy who is just before the modern man. I only very recently came to know that Neanderthal was another species of human being. Right? It's not just, yeah.
yeah,
This I had no idea.
yeah,
After reading
yeah,
Sapiens, I came to know that
yeah,
there were many species of human beings.
yeah, yeah,
अलग species रहते थे.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
uh, Neanderthals and Sapiens mixed, and
yeah.
then so we all have some Neanderthal DNA in us. But people in sub-Saharan Africa don't have any Neanderthal DNA. Do you know this?
No, because they moved to Europe or
Yeah,
what?
and the Neanderthals were in Europe.
Uh,
So the interbreeding happened in Europe, and
uh,
then so that's why Europeans and Asians have 1 to 2%
yeah,
Neanderthal genes.
Eurasians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and one of the things that this Neanderthal genes does very interesting is your blood clotting becomes faster. Okay, so that is
okay.
a Neanderthal trait, which was very useful at that time. कट गया, फटक से clot हो गया. So we will picked it up. But right now it causes heart strokes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like it
Yeah,
blocks arteries and stuff. I think
yeah,
heart strokes only.
yeah,
I have to check, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I just want to add that one of the most beautiful thing that is happening in my life and in our life, I think the day we started this series of Two Paths to Curious is that there are some things that we have just somehow assumed growing up. It's not that someone has really taught us wrong things or something. It has we
yeah,
at least I there are something that you just assume. Like a lot of the comments last in our last video was, oh, you didn't know that some planets were gas giant. I'm sorry, but I somehow just assumed that all planets were solid. So
yeah,
similarly, somehow we've always assumed that evolution was linear. Like there were apes, chimpanzees, and then whatever Homo erectus, and then
yeah,
Neanderthal, and then Homo sapien. Somehow, all these years we've thought, and you're right. Like when I just recently started reading *Sapiens* because you recommended it, and I realized, oh my God, there was a point in Earth where there were different species of humans
yeah.
which were there at the same time, and
It's like
I was like, oh,
It's like
I
Lord
mean,
of the Rings.
yeah, correct. Yeah, they're hobbits. They're, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tolkien knew more about evolutionary process than we did. The next, now that we're talking about old early humans, as a pet parent myself, like I have a dog, so I was curious about reading about domestication of dogs, and that happened almost 15,000 years ago. So since
Yeah.
like for since 15,000 years ago, we've had a dog as a pet, like in some form, and
Yeah.
the first dog ever that we domesticated was a Eurasian gray wolf. Okay. Now there are many theories of how this happened, and no one has actually agreed. There are two main theories, and I just want to share them. First is because the human proliferation happened around 15-20,000 years ago. It reduced
Yeah.
the amount of prey that was available for wolves, because
Mm.
of which wolf from being a hunter became a scavenger, and they started relying on human beings for food, and that is how one wolf somewhere must have been the first one to say क्या इधर hunting वंटिंग करना है, इधर बैठे बैठे खाना मिल रहा है, and he came.
Uh,
And then because of that one, it comes, I think, in Cosmos episode 1. There's a beautiful part where he talks about visually they show one pre-humans lighting eating some meat,
yeah.
and then a wolf comes, and then there is another theory that it was just a mutual relationship that happened between humans and wolves, where wolves were getting prey from humans, and humans were getting alarm or security from wolves. So it's an interesting thing. Like for 15,000 years, we've had dogs as our pets in some shape or form. Just wanted to share
Yeah. I don't know how old cats are, but yeah.
that. Okay, the next point, buddy, that I want to talk about is the entire thing of how prehistoric humans were the first and only animals who were able to talk about imaginary or abstract things. You know, like millions of species all over the world uh, can communicate effectively with each other. They can. Almost every species can communicate with each other, but those communication are very simple, concrete communication. Like
Yeah.
monkeys can talk with each other, but it can just be like alarm calls that there's
Yeah.
a lion is coming,
Yeah.
let's run away. Such basic things. Humans are the only animals which can talk about abstract things like religious things or moral things or imaginary things, and that has somehow been obviously a huge factor into how our society has developed, because even early humans could talk about these things, form a bond, and so on. So I just want to
But
share that.
it's so funny that that's what you exactly just did.
Yeah.
You spoke in such abstract terms. So what I was saying is basically we just think that cavemen used to be very dumb, right? And Stone Age people just stone pakade pura time by khana khayega. That's not how they used to be. They used to be as smart as us. Like at least 200,000 years ago, they used to be as smart as us. And as deeply as we know our world, like अपने को पता है स्टॉक मार्केट करके चीज होता है, अपने को पता है बैंक में डिपॉजिट करके चीज होता है, अपने को पता है डेमोक्रेसी कैसा काम करता है, ओके टेलीविजन कैसा, इंटरनेट कैसा. We know deeply about a lot of things and widely about a lot of other variety of things. They knew that much about their environment.
Yeah.
So it's such two different completely they're as smart as us. Imagine if you could understand trees like you understand your desktop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that uh, mind blowing?
Yeah. I agree because I was just reading how the early humans reached Australia, okay, some 50,000 years ago. And just think about it, okay? Let's take a step back. Think, let's compare it to one of modern humans' biggest achievements is that we reached moon, okay?
Yeah,
In 1969, I can imagine the world would have been in such awe that you see that moon, a human has gone there.
Yeah.
That's a great, like, great achievement. But imagine 50,000 years ago, there were some humans who reached Australia. Now, how they were in Africa with no technology,
Yeah.
and the research says that they use boats, like very basic boats. They used basic boats, and they reached, I mean, across Pacific Ocean to this island in Australia. How?
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. I don't know, in like more philosophical terms, humans, uh, the way we push boundary, and our quest for unknown, or whatever you call it, and it's
Yeah.
not a new thing. It has always been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Imagine someone somewhere then was like, "Chal yaar, dekhte hain kya hai us side."
Yeah.
Took a boat and reached Australia.
I think they must have come like they must have walked out of Africa into Europe, then Asia, then come down through that. Is it what is that country? I don't know. Indonesia, Vietnam. Which one is that country? The one that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, somewhere there. But still,
yeah.
point is that
And
at some point, like, even if you
yeah.
go in that area, let's say you go to Fiji, and
Yeah.
that part of the world, still there'll be some point where you'll have to cross an ocean using a boat to reach Australia,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because it was an island.
It's
And
so funny that they
50,
must have gone by Singapore just like us.
yeah, yeah, for all you know, they must have gone to Singapore duty free and then
Yeah.
go from there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they arrived in Australia 50,000 years back by just using boat. I mean, it was really inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again,
Uh,
you're talking
hmm,
about fire, no? Fire
hmm.
also help people move into harsher environments. So basically,
Yeah.
evidence of fire you find early in tropical areas, but then much later in the Russia type of
Hmm,
this
hmm,
thing,
hmm,
because
hmm.
ultimately they could use fire to go into a territory where there was no natural support in winter types, and then from Russia they crossed like this into uh, North America.
Oh, acha, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Have you seen those maps of
Yeah.
human migration?
Human migration. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I have. All these migration have had such big impact. For example, the lighter tone of humans also happened because of this. Because uh, earlier, the earliest humans used to live in areas uh, where the sunshine, or like sun, was really harsh and all, like Africa, Ethiopia, etc. It's only around 6,000 years ago that humans started this change to lighter skin tone. That happened because humans started moving to higher latitudes where the UV rays were lesser than before. So basically sun protection happened and all that happened. So all these small things are factors towards all this. The next point I want to make, because we were talking about things that we just assume. For
yeah,
example, we assumed that evolution was linear. We just assumed this, assumed that. One of the assumptions that I always had for some reason is that the early humans lived really less than how much we live. In my mind, I don't know. I was always like, humans must live like 25, 30 years ago, 25, 30 years lifespan. Because what else? Like how with no medical help, or like no medicine. But I realized that many prehistoric humans lived a very long and healthy life, which was a very like huge discovery for me. In the
mm,
sense that the point is, although their average lifespan was still 30 to 40, but since their infant mortality was very high, a
yeah,
lot of kids used to die. So their average went down to 30, 40. But there were still many pre-humans, or like early humans, who used to live for like a good 60, 70 years old. And how they discovered it was also great. They discovered like numerous elderly prehistoric humans fossil, and they saw their teeth, and they realized they, they were fallen teeth and all. And some of
wow,
those humans had arthritis. These are all things that you don't, like, young people don't get generally.
yeah,
They were like clear cut signs of them being really old, like at least 60, 70.
yeah,
So that was a big myth busting point for me, that many of them actually lived long.
My favorite mind-blowing moment was when I found out that in Georgia they found some Stone Age jar or a pot or something, and they found tartaric acid in it. They're like, how is there tartaric acid in it? And apparently these motherfuckers used to make wine, bro. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
imagine?
yeah,
One hand stone element,
yeah.
and the other hand is like,
Wine, beer, many of these so-called intoxicants was some of
yeah,
date back to so long back in our history.
yeah,
Like the like use of herbs and like when we'll talk about in later episode, we'll talk about how beer was one of the earliest beverages.
yeah.
And yeah, these guys were actually drinking wine.
इधर आग नहीं जल रहा है उधर वाइन पहन के वाइन पी के बैठे हुए डेट
हाँ,
पे जा रहे हैं कैंडल
अरे
जला
जल्दी
के
खत्म करो, ये फ्रिज में नहीं रख सकते, अपनी बॉटल खोल दी.
oh, so fun.
Okay. My next point was how, again, these are all points of things we assume and I realized are not really true. Another assumption that we have had is that early humans or prehistoric humans were hunters. We've always like known the hunter gatherer, hunter gatherer, hunter gatherer. But prehistoric humans or the first humans were actually scavengers and not hunters. You know,
Mm,
we've always thought hunter gatherer, but the earliest humans used to just wait for a larger predator to kill, and then they used to go and scavenge on whatever was left.
wow.
And that is why earliest humans' biggest source of protein was actually bone marrow. Because imagine a lion has killed something, and lion has eaten the main chunk and left. Then the other round of scavengers come, like say hyenas and jackals. They come and they eat. The only thing they used to leave, like the most precious thing they used to leave in that carcass, was bone marrow. And humans figured that out. They were like,
Mm,
these guys don't go that deep. So humans used to go and then eat bone marrow. So bone marrow was the biggest source of protein for early humans because we were scavengers.
that's insane.
That's insane. It's insane how these small things affect bone
Bone marrow
marrow
and soup and wine.
in, instead of wine and cheese. The social gathering was bone marrow and wine. I had recently gone to a friend's place here in Bombay, and that friend of mine does not believe in evolution. That's fine. Everyone has their own. And one of his points was that for hundreds of years nothing has changed. We all look like this. At least 1,000 years, 800 years. We've seen humans like images from say Mughal era or before that. We are still the same. And then I realized that all these changes have taken over such a long period of time. We need to understand that. We need to understand that some of these evolutions are as long as 6 million years.
Yeah,
Like our brain size has gone up by 300% in 6 million years of human evolution. So it's not that in 100 years will change.
yeah.
All these processes are so gradual and they take place over such a long time that we can't understand here if 5 years later will be different or our hair will change.
Yeah.
All these small things have taken forever.
But I also feel like generation gap is also a, but I don't know, this is very unscientific. It's a feeling based thing. But when I see kids these days, I'm like, these kids are way smarter than I was,
Yeah.
right?
No, I agree. Like because of your exposure, etc. Like a very small example is this. Okay, when Homo sapiens came, fire was already there because fire was discovered by Homo erectus. Okay,
Yeah,
so they didn't know a life before fire, so they came and
yeah,
they assumed this is life. It's very similar to today's kids and internet. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Today's kids come and internet is already there. They're like,
yeah,
okay, this is how world is. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this is exactly how they would have felt. When someone told them, there was a time and there was no fire. And they'll be like, oh dude, okay, boomer, or whatever. Yeah, so I was saying how brain has grown 300% in 6 million years. Uh, which of course has been very helpful. as we spread all over the world, as early humans spread, etc. But it has come at a cost of a very painful childbirth, which is very
Yeah,
uniquely human. Like
yeah,
I can just assume that other mammals also have pain, but human pain is supposed to be much more than, because of the larger brain size that a human child has. Like you said, it's human brain is very weird. It has 2% of body weight, but it uses 20% of our energy.
yeah.
No, so yeah, big brain was a big point that I wanted to make.
Do you know that
Uh,
Neanderthals had bigger brains than sapiens? So, in all likelihood, they were smarter, but their frontal lobe was smaller. And frontal lobe
okay.
is the one that is from sapiens only, I think. Uh, Frontal lobe is the one that controls our social connections and stuff. So
Mm,
Neanderthals could live like, I don't know, maybe 100 in a group, but our frontal lobe somehow had some mutation or something
mm,
some thousand years ago, where we just went into this mode of, say, something like religion, where we can gather lakhs and crores of people together.
mm,
So
mm.
although Neanderthals on a individual basis are smarter, uh, sapiens won out, basically.
Oh,
This is the basic point that he makes in Sapiens, is that
okay.
we can create fiction to uh, put a lot of people together. And he says that there are a lot of species that can work in large numbers, just like humans can. Ants also can work in large numbers, but humans are very flexible. Like, we all used to go out from country to country right now, and then coronavirus came, and we just everybody locked down. Ants cannot do that. So
Right.
this, yeah, so this flexibility, something in our frontal lobe allows us to imagine a world beyond, like you're saying, the abstract, this thing that
Yeah.
unites us all,
Yeah.
and that's how we got the evolutionary advantage.
Wow. I need to finish that book. I've just started. The only thing I've learned so far from Sapiens is that many species coexisted, and that is still wrecking my brain.
Yeah,
I mean, I've realized that evolution is not a linear line. In fact,
yeah,
evolution or human evolution is more like a tree where there are different branches, and some branches lead to new branches. Some branches just die somewhere, and that is what evolution is. Like you said about mutation, and mutation is another beautiful thing that just happens at some point, and then it has such large effect after like thousands of years. For example, until about 10,000 years ago, and again I'm going back to our last episode where we were casually using such large numbers.
yeah.
Until about 10,000 years ago, most people had brown eyes. Most people who were there on the earth 10,000 years ago had brown eyes. There was one single genetic mutation somewhere near Black Sea, maybe in Spain, somewhere near Black Sea. One single genetic mutation switched someone's eyes from brown to blue. Okay, and then approximately now 8% of world has blue eyes.
Wow.
So there was one genetic mutation somewhere, and then now 8% of today's world has blue eyes. And I was reading how it happened. So like not every mutation has such large effect, right? This blue eyes affected, like it had bigger effect than expected, was because it was considered attractive then. It is still considered attractive, but when
Yeah,
someone had
buddy.
blue eyes, yeah,
Blue eyes
yeah,
hypnotize.
blue eyes hypnotize. So from like early humans to anything, it has always like been considered attractive. So because it was considered attractive, the
Yeah,
propensity of that person to reproduce and to mate was higher, and so on and so forth. So
yeah,
one blue eye, more breeding, and then
yeah.
eventually 8% of world today has blue eyes, while
I read
0% years ago.
I read one call article when I was a child. Okay,
Yeah,
I was very excited to read the article. You'll understand when I say the title.
yeah.
Aishwarya Rai and Angelina Jolie are related. Okay, this is the name of the title of the headline of the piece. I was like, whoa, what? What? Crazy. and then I read it, and it's basically like they both have blue eyes, and all blue-eyed people have the same
Yeah,
ancestor.
yeah,
At some point, they
yeah,
must have been related.
yeah.
I'm going to find that article and just put it in the description so that everybody gets annoyed. Oh, fuck all. I don't think it's on the internet also. It was in like proper print.
One of those, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I just wanna, in my series of assumption, I wanna make one more,
Yeah.
which is how we always say that Darwin said that we came from monkeys, and this is one of the biggest myths I think in our entire study of humans. Darwin never argued that humans came from monkeys. Darwin only said that monkeys, apes, and humans had a common ancestor. You know, and that is something that most people don't seem to understand.
Hmm.
Whenever we talk of Darwin, we are like, no, he says that we came from monkeys. We were not monkeys. We just had a common ancestor at some point. Yeah, that is one point I wanted to make in terms of this thing. Now I'll tell you a very fun fact, buddy, since you talked about Homo erectus. Okay,
Yeah.
early humans, their penises, okay, were layered, uh, were covered in hard spines. Okay, yeah. So earlier humans, the penises were covered in hard spines. Okay, and the funda is, and it's beautiful. Okay, like the study about how and what happened, but I'll try and summarize this. Okay, so hard spines in humans helped a man's sperm overtake that of his competitors. So what happens still, like most mammals like chimpanzees and apes, etc., have spines around their penises. So what happens is that your ejaculation is very quick. So intercourses for them are very short. They're very short. And early humans, since they used to mate with like every female and used to have so many competitors, there was a competition around uh, like who will be the father and something like that. Like people used to just, there was a lot of competition about intercourse between male and female, and hence that used to be very helpful, those finds. Now over the years, and we still don't know the correlation between these two things. Okay, with spines gone, humans started having longer intercourse and more enjoyable intercourse. Okay, and that led to monogamy because there was no competition. You know, so once you are happy with a certain someone, you continue to be that person with that person, and there is no like competition among males to find mates. So same for females, which basically this habit of monogamy eventually led to the evolution, which led to us losing our spine. I mean, penile spine. The other theory says that it works the other way around, where since monogamy came, sorry, the other way around. Fuck, I fucked it up. Wait. The other theory says, I'm just, I'm fucking your edit now. The other theory
No,
says
it's fine.
that
This is all going in the edit. I'm,
nobody please don't.
yeah, yeah, it's going. It's very fun.
The
What does
other
the other
theory
theory
says,
say?
the other theory says that it's the other way around. That because we lost our spine, we started having larger intercourse, and hence we became more monogamous. So we till date don't know that whether monogamy led to losing our penile spine or whether losing penile spine made us more monogamous in nature.
But
So yeah,
I think that is the longest and most scientific marriage joke ever written. Did you lose your spine because you became monogamous?
I
Or
wanted to
became
read more
monogamous?
about it. I wanted to read more about it, and every headline had this wordplay. You know, early humans lost their penile spine. You know how we lost our spine? Okay. Next up, I want
But
to talk about.
but do you think it could be because of because humans have such a large 9 months ka uh, what do you call childbearing period? Do you think it's because monogamy helps in that? That if you are monogamous, then there is somebody to provide for the woman when she's pregnant. So it's the same guy. Otherwise, if the guy runs away and in the last trimester of pregnancy, then the probability of surviving of the kid decreases. Maybe that.
Yeah, there are many theories of how monogamy and like parenthood and marriage etc. came into picture, and obviously that's a long topic. But the one thing that I wanted to add to this thing that you just said, you're right about like who will take care of the child and who's the parent.
Yeah.
But one thing is that for the longest of time in our history, free love was a normal thing.
Hmm.
It was, I think, the big shift happened when agriculture started, which we'll cover obviously in the next. When agriculture came, people started having property, some in some shape. And since people had property, the question of inheritance came. And that is when you had multiple sexual partners, no one was responsible for the kid because you could never figure who the father is. And monogamy was not a thing. It's only when you had inheritance when there were things like, okay, who is going to own this thing after this person is gone? You know, okay, so there were things like, okay, who, where does it pass down? Like, okay, this is my cave and this is my whatever hut and this is my land, the small land that we have started now, who, and that is when this concept of like this was a major step in like
Yeah.
parenthood, marriage, etc. Yeah, buddy. So yeah, sorry, the next point I want to make was uh, how how evolution is still present in some shape and form. A lot of things that we see today in our body or around us trace their root back to these early humans and the and the evolution that started them. For example, this again blows my mind. Every square inch of human skin, on average, has more hair producing follicles than most other animals. Okay, as any other primate, like compare it to like ape or chimpanzee or anyone, we have more hair producing follicles. It's just that it's the difference is they are thinner, they are shorter, they are lighter. Okay, and so uh, one second, I made a note in my notes about hair. Uh, so so like you talked about hiccups in the last episode. I want to talk about goosebumps in this episode. Okay. Now,
Mm.
goosebumps are usually like they're mostly useless in terms of their contribution to what happens now. But the reason we have it is because our ancestors, when they felt cold, whenever they felt cold, they used to have a reflex action in their body. So what used to happen was tiny muscles at the base of their hair follicles used to contract. Okay, and that caused their coat to stand up and trap more air to make it warmer. So you feel cold, reflex, these muscles contract, and then your coat becomes becomes like this, and it traps more air, and you become warm.
Yeah.
That is the reason why till date we have goosebumps, but it's useless now because the hair is not like that, and we have other things to counter cold and become warm, etc. But
Yeah.
goosebumps have their root to human evolution. It's
Yeah.
what I
I
want.
think sometimes when I see the cats try to become this thing, no, when the cats try to scare you like this, and
Yeah,
all of their this thing stand up. I feel that is also a part of the goosebumps. Like if you have more hair and you have goosebumps, then you look bigger. So cats try to look bigger and scare and intimidate. Maybe that could also be one possibility of the goosebumps. I don't know. Your theory seems more likely. I think
yeah,
I have
yeah,
one
yeah.
more
There are
point.
yeah.
Say.
No, there are, yeah, as you rightly said, there are theories, more than one theories for most of these things, the topic
Yeah,
that we are talking about today.
yeah, yeah. I have one. Okay, what did I do? I haven't done anything. Okay, everything's fine. Okay. One thing I was
Hmm.
thinking, like, okay, so they have looked at the DNA and they've compared the DNA with whatever they found of Neanderthals and what they found in Africa and what they
Yeah.
found in America, and they made this map of okay, this must have happened, that must have happened. I was like, at some point, if not today, maybe 50 years from now, if they can get every human being to say it's like a census thing, right? Every human
Yeah.
being spits on this thing, the DNA test kit, and all of that data is fed into a supercomputer, and the supercomputer makes a tree which just takes it, and we can find out that we are related maybe by four orders of difference, and we had a common
Yeah.
ancestor maybe 10,000
Yeah.
years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
and maybe I had a common ancestor with somebody, like a family tree of the whole world is possible
Yeah.
if they can develop that technology and gene sequencing and all that. That would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
apparently there are theories that there is something called a genetic bottleneck. So
Yeah.
there used to be a lot of people, then all of them died, and a very few people remain, and
Yeah.
then all of modern humans are derived from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Around, I think, 80,000, and we still don't know the answer to this. Around 80,000 years ago, humans saw a massive reduction in population.
Yeah,
We still don't know how that happened or why that happened. So
exactly.
there are so many unknowns. like there are in the sense that just like a Sensex drop, it was a point
Yeah,
80,000. People say maybe it was volcano or maybe some natural disaster, but we don't know yet. Now,
yeah,
because we are using words like 80,000 years ago, etc. And again, we might get comments about existential crisis and all that, but your perspective changes while reading all this. And I'll give you a perspective thing next. Okay, like you said, modern humans and Neanderthals existed alongside each other on this planet. Modern humans and Neanderthals coexisted for about 10,000 years ago. There are other numbers also, 20, 40, but I'm taking the minimum. So for 10,000 years ago, these two species coexisted. To give you perspective, that means that from 8,000 BC, okay, we don't even know what happened 8,000 BC. From 8,000 BC to present, that is the timeline where these two species existed together. To come back to my Homo erectus. Homo erectus existed on this earth for 1.5 million years ago.
yeah.
There was a homogeneous Homo
The
species of
genus is
genus
Homo.
Homo. Yeah, the genus is Homo, right?
Yeah,
They existed on the earth for 1.5 million years ago. How
yeah,
is that for perspective?
yeah. For
Yeah.
so long, no. It's all so long.
It's all so long. For example, there's a study that says no major changes in us has happened in the last 50,000 years ago. There are small changes that have happened, but like nothing really major has happened in last 50,000 years ago. But there are still small things which are happening. For
Yeah,
example, the biggest example of how we are evolving is lactose tolerance in many people all over the world. I was just reading about British people. So British people, lactose tolerance has spread rapidly in the past 100 generations, which is around 2,000 years ago. Okay. In a span of 2,000 years ago, across 100 generations, uh, they've become much more tolerant to lactose. So a British person can much easily have dairy, like cow milk, etc. now than it was possible 2,000 years ago, because they've developed tolerance to lactose,
yeah,
which basically means we are evolving, but not in the sense that we've lost our tail or something, like no major evolution. But
yeah.
these small evolutions are still happening.
I'll add one point to that. Similarly, initially in the world population, a lot of people did not have alcohol tolerance. We're not drinkers. But then people discovered how to make beer before they discovered how to purify water. Okay. So if you
Right.
had beer,
Yeah.
then you die of liver failure in your 30s or 40s. But if you had water, then you die at the age of 7, 8. Okay. So then most people who used to drink water mostly used to die. Beer ones used to survive for longer. And beer had antiseptic properties also. So then
Yeah.
so that's how most of the world population eventually became drinkers and had tolerance for drinking. I don't know where I read this, but it's very fascinating.
It is fascinating, right? Like the look at the priorities. I mean, like, ठीक है,
Yeah,
safe water तो ले लेंगे बाद में, but we are important. Uh, so
buddy.
okay,
One before
yeah,
you make your next point, just want to
yes,
point
yes,
out
buddy.
that if say 1,000 years from now, somebody found your skeleton and my skeleton, they would think we are from different species.
I
Because you have this compact. Okay, look at the difference in hand size. Okay, just keep it next to your face. Just for just look at this. I can cover my whole face. Body can't even. Body's face is this small. uh,
okay, hand.
buddy, you're Homo habilis.
Okay, since you're talking about hands, I will talk about two things related to hands. Okay, first is there's a fascinating theory that says that species that cooperate rather than compete, they value sameness, right? They'll have similar things because the species is cooperating and there's a species which is not cooperating. Okay, one of the result of this simple theory is that we have more right-handed people than left-handed people. So on the planet right now, 90% of our planet is right-handed and 10% is left-handed. Okay, this was true 5,000 years back and still true. So for the last 5,000 years, this ratio has been 9:1. Okay, but lefties, who were just 10% of overall population, are at least 50% or more than 50% in elite athletes. Okay, so like famous baseball players or like lot of elite
Kanan Gill.
athletes who are,
Kanan is lefty.
yeah, Sachin Tendulkar, like he's right-handed batsman, but he's a left-hander in like when he writes and all. And you can see like on the batting lineup in any cricket team in the world, there are disproportionate left-handed compared to our normal life. That's
Yeah,
because that's a more competing field. People are competing. Okay, so when a species together wants to do something, and so one of the reason why Homo sapiens have survived and thrived is because we valued sameness. Ki, chalo, sab, let's all do this, let's all do that, and that is why imagine we were all working on tools together, and we were all doing like things together. So we had to cooperate, and that's why all of us had to have. So if one was right-handed, we were like, okay, all of us, the most the entire society followed sameness, and that led to all of us being right-handed. Left-handed were very, very rare. That's why normal life, it's still 90% right hand, but things that do not necessarily require sameness or like cooperation and require more of competition, the probability of a left-hander percentage being more than 10% is very high. So right
but if
hand, left hand is somehow related to evolution. Is what I want to say.
you have to explain this again, I'll just rephrase what I understood. In
Hmm.
normal life, 9:1.
Hmm.
Okay. For every 9 people in a classroom, there'll be one guy who is left-handed.
Yeah.
But in the highly competitive fields, 50-50.
It's
Nearly
not all.
50-50.
It will be disproportionately higher. There are some researchers which say
Got it.
50%. In golf, you'll see it's much lesser. In US major baseball, it's much higher. So yeah, like in athletic fields, elite athletes, the number will be much higher than 10%.
But why? Like evolutionarily, that part I didn't understand.
So the part is that any species that cooperates, let's forget right and left hand as of now. Imagine a species that has to cooperate to survive or cooperate to thrive will always value sameness, that all of us need to have this, that all of us do. This all of us will do. So one of those aspects was which hand to use while doing things. For example, imagine early humans in a forest and they have to say go hunting or then come back or make food together or like make a cave together. In the quest for that sameness, everyone was using the same hand, which was right, and there were very few people who were not using, and which number is 10% for the last 5,000 years. Now, what the point I was trying to make is that when A group of people that have to cooperate with each other will have such similarity. There'll be more homogeneity. But imagine a group of people where cooperation is not necessarily a trait, where they are competing. There, the probability of everyone doing the same thing is much lesser. And in this case, using the same hand. So that is why we all were inclined towards using only one dominant hand, and that has remained till date. But things where you have to, even for example, a left-hander will always have advantage when it comes to a boxing match or a wrestling match. So those
Got
are the
it.
advantages that they have because they are different.
But it's a lot of these little factoids we have discussed, and I think it's very fascinating. And there's a lot of unknowns in this. There's way too many unknowns. They're still finding evidence as we speak, not like right now, but every year they're finding evidence, and our methods of studying those evidences are going up. So in our lifetime, we'll even get to know way more about where we came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the next episode, we're going to go for agricultural societies, and from
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Okay. Thereabout somewhere
Yeah.
there. This is
Yeah.
yeah. I think yeah. Yeah. A
Agricultural.
lot of
We should do 2 episodes. One is agricultural societies, and parallelly language and evolution of script.
oh yeah. Okay.
We should do 2 episodes there, because now we'll have to start. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah. It
Language,
can't.
language. That's my language skill. I can't.
Yeah,
We have to
it can't
branch
be
out.
linear. It can't be
Yeah,
linear. It can't be
yeah,
linear anymore as we progress.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. My closing argument would be that there's so many things which are unknown, and we too, as two biotechnology graduates, we know some things about genome or like DNA sequencing and all that, but still so much to be discovered. And there is literally more than one theory for everything that we've spoken today, for
Yeah.
example.
Too fast, too curious. Signing out. Keep listening to us on wherever you're listening: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, everywhere it's available. Okay, I'll stop the recording.